Robert Saleh is out, Aaron Rodgers is old, and the AFC is looking a little bit like a hot mess through 5 weeks of the NFL season. It's time to get the squad together for Locked On NFL AFC Squad.
You are talking ball with the AFC Squad. From the Chiefs to the Bills, the Ravens to the Texans, and everyone else around the AFC, it's the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network, bringing you scoops, breakdowns, and the most comprehensive preview of the upcoming weekend for hard-hitting AFC football with our harder-hitting takes. Buckle up, it's the AFC Squad, and we have a seat for you. No hurt feelings allowed. Squad up. You're part of the AFC Squad.
What's up, everyone? Welcome into the Locked On NFL AFC Squad. It is our debut episode here as we get a little bit of some fiery takes around the AFC. This is supposed to be fun, laid back, some banter, so sit back, grab your favorite beverage, and more importantly, join us as we get you ready for another wild week across the AFC. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over there at PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase Locked On NFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. I'm Cody Rourke. I host the Locked On Broncos podcast, joined alongside by Marcus Mosher of Locked On Dynasty. He also covers the Cowboys as well, Locked On Cowboys. Tony Wiggins does some work over there, obviously Locked On NFL in the second slot of the day on top of Locked On Jaguars. Kevin Ostreicher, another host of Locked On NFL and host of the Locked On Ravens podcast. Mike Debate of the Locked On Patriots podcast. Chris Clark of Locked On Chiefs. And gentlemen, obviously it's great to see all of you here today as we debut this new style. You're going to get this every single week, designed to be fun, laid back. So hopefully you guys have your drink. People watching at home have their drink. We're kicked back. I think there's something big that happened in the AFC this week that has really nothing to do with any of our teams, but let's get it out of the way. What is going on with the New York Jets? Robert Saleh to be honest with you, gents, and Marcus, I'm going to throw this to you to start here. This kind of surprised me that Robert Saleh was fired as quick as he was, but more importantly, I think it showcases that Aaron Rodgers is running the Jets.
I think the timing was the surprising part. I don't think anybody was surprised that Robert Saleh was fired or that he didn't make it to the end of the season, but this Jets team has a chance to be in first place in the AFC East after Monday night. It's kind of shocking that they didn't even give him that chance. But to me, that shows that Woody Johnson, the Jets owner, and Aaron Rodgers, who is really the Jets owner, believes that he's lost the locker room, right? It feels like that Robert Saleh's lost the locker room. He's lost the team, and they had no choice but to move on.
And look, gentlemen, feel free to chime in, whoever, wherever, your thoughts as well. You know, Tony, Kevin, Mike, Chris, we're just going to let it all out here.
Listen, man. Yeah, he probably lost the locker room, but I wonder who caused it. You know what I'm saying? You got a Hall of Famer, and the way players think, man, you know, they're in awe of this dude, man. Look, Aaron Rodgers is one of the most talented people to ever play the quarterback position, right? They've seen what he's done. A lot of them grew up watching him. And you come in there, your coach trying to hug you on the sideline, and you pushing him off, and then now you got to he lost the locker room. No, you took the locker room from him. That's what it was. It was Game of Thrones, and you came in and you snatched it. That's he. What was that dude? That old dude in that gown in that cave. The people that didn't take it. The real religious people on Game of Thrones. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, like they played the Reigns of Castamere. Like that's what Robert Saleh heard when he went into his office this morning. And he's
that's exactly who Aaron Rodgers was. Them people that made seriously walk and go shame.
I swear,
probably walked out of the building saying shame.
Kevin, what do you got to say on this?
For me, it's just I love the cycle that happened on Tuesday because there were like 15 different reports of everything that went down where it was like, okay, Saleh's out, but actually Saleh had decided to demote Nathaniel Hackett 5 minutes before he was fired, and then Aaron Rodgers was blindsided by it and all cool with it. And I'm just like, okay, not everything adds up. I think everybody here knows what really went down. And plus, to me, this is like, how does this fix the offense for the Jets? I mean, the defense was fine. Robert Saleh, defensive guy. And I'm just like, what does this mean for the offense? And honestly, to me, the whole other big storyline is Davante Adams. And we've been all talking about how, okay, this is the Jets and maybe the Saints and maybe sprinkle in the Ravens or the Steelers or whatever. But now it's apparently, well, this hasn't really affected the Jets' interest in Davante. And so it's like, okay, who is really running the Jets? we all know it's Mr. Aaron Rodgers.
Kevin, I want to ask you, how do you think this went down? Because part of me thinks this is like Game of Thrones style, like Tony mentioned. Like probably Rodgers got wind that Hackett was going to be gone. So he went and put a power play on Johnson, said, hey, if you get rid of Hackett, I'm gone as well. I'm out of here. What do you think happened here?
Yeah, I mean, that would make sense because obviously the chain of events is usually you get rid of a coordinator, you see if you can fix it that way, and then it's the head coach that maybe falls after the season or a little bit after that. But it's like nobody questions the relationship that Rodgers and Hackett have. Everybody knows the relationship that they have. So I think, to me, I would agree with you, Marcus, where it probably some level of I came in here to New York because I was promised X, Y, and Z, and we know how difficult it was for the Packers to even move Aaron Rodgers to the Jets and everything that they needed to get. Lazard came into, and there were conversations like Randall Cobb. What's that going to look like? I think it was some level of, hey, you know what? You bring in a future Hall of Fame quarterback, and you're kind of screwed without him, and you might be screwed with him now, but at the end of the day, he's going to get what he wants. And Woody Johnson kind of was like, all right, well, I kind of have to do this or else I don't know what the heck's going to go on at this point.
Now, Moses, ask me how it happened. I want you to be leaving your office with your box, right? And I'm going to say what's wrong. And you say he demoted me, and then watch what I do. And I'm Aaron Rodgers. So you coming out of your office. I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
I got fired.
By who?
By Woody.
Like hell you did. Go put your stuff back in that office and watch what I go down here and do. You ain't getting fired. And then I want you to look out that window in 15 minutes, and I want you to see who's bopping to their car with security around them. You ain't going nowhere. That's how it went down.
So, Tony, I got to ask you, do you think there's any chance that this works, right? Like the Jets they band together as a locker room, and they suddenly start to play better. Is there any chance that now that the bad guy is gone, things start to get better over in New York?
Temporarily, and I'll tell you why. Because it always happens like that. But you remember when y'all remember, Chris, you remember this. You remember when Romeo Crennel took over, and then all of a sudden the Chiefs won some games, and then they put him as head coach. And what happened?
They beat the Packers.
Yeah, but then the next year, what happened after that?
Oh, yeah. Horrible.
Yeah, so that little quick switch, it kind of always works, right? But see, the reason why I know it won't work is because Aaron Rodgers won't stand in front of anybody and answer tough questions. And when you're the de facto leader, that's part of leadership. You can't just go out there, cause all this mutiny, and then have everybody on your side. But then when things get tough, and they will, when somebody like Baltimore or Kansas City starts smacking them around on the field, now what's going to happen? Okay, boss, it's going to be somebody in there that was very, very loyal to Robert Saleh, and they're going to go on the defensive side.
The interim. Olbrich.
That's right. And they're going to go, oh, okay, coach, what we do now? And he ain't going to be nowhere. He's going to be on McAfee. That's where he's going to be, because people that lead de facto, they always pull these strings behind the scenes, but they don't want to answer tough questions in front of people. And the New York media is really, really tough.
And you remember how that worked with Antonio Pierce last year in Las Vegas, how everything was sweet with him. And they were playing for him and everything was great. And now in Las Vegas this year, there's the quarterback drama. There's the Devontae Adams drama. So, Wig, you're spot on right there. And again, is that all Antonio Pierce's fault? No. But, it's it's the initial new coach comes in. Oh, is this the guy that can be the guy? And then all of a sudden, sometimes it works and then sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, Mike, you're a guy who covers the Patriots. You see the Jets 2 times per season. I mean, your thoughts on this and really how it impacts, obviously, the Patriots, who now making a change at quarterback themselves. Like, the news got stolen. Like, the Jets came out and stole the Patriots. Obviously, the Patriots buzz here on obviously Tuesday.
Yeah, there's nothing Patriots fans love more than seeing a Jets implosion. And anytime you can steal headlines from Gang Green down there just south on 95, Pats fans are going to love it. Look, bottom line, there's a lot to lament in Patriots Nation. So nobody's laughing at anybody right now in a Patriots uniform. They got their own problems and plenty of them. But I think it's interesting. You look, and you guys have made such great points about Aaron Rodgers now kind of taking the reins and really kind of being that alpha in the coach's room, on the field, and really kind of taking that mantra with the New York Jets. From a New England Patriots standpoint, this is interesting because you're looking at a team now that all of a sudden could be on the verge of imploding, maybe not. Who knows? I mean, there's a lot that could go wrong. There's a lot that could go right on this. But I think the white elephant in the room is everybody's wondering who's waiting in the wings. We know Jeff Ulbrich is going to get his opportunity, but there's a guy right now that knows that division very well who is looking for a job next year. And a lot of people are wondering if those types of feelings, that animosity that exists right now in one Patriots place between the former coach Bill Belichick and that owner Robert Kraft is bad enough for Bill Belichick to go back to Gang Green and the Jets. I don't see it happening, but you never know. Stranger things have happened. The WWE could not have scripted this any better. I mean, I can see Bill Belichick coming out on halftime when the Jets can't make a third down stop. The glass breaks. You got Jim Ross yelling, "By God, that's Bill Belichick's music." And he comes out and saves that defense. I'm telling you, Triple H definitely, call me. I could script this out pretty well, guys.
No, look, obviously the AFC right now, there's a lot of ups and downs. And speaking of that, some things can change. We've seen it's been a week-to-week league so far through 5 weeks of the season. As we all go into week 6, which teams in the AFC should be on upset alert? You're going to get that and much more here on this debut episode of Locked On NFL AFC Squad. Today's Locked On AFC Squad is brought to you by our friends over there at ZBiotics. ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. So here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make ZBiotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly and feel your best tomorrow. Here's how you use it. Step 1, drink pre-alcohol. For best results, make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Step 2, drink responsibly. Pace yourself, hydrate, and get a good night's sleep. Step 3, enjoy tomorrow. Wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. Go to zbiotics.com/LockedOnNFL to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On NFL at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with 100% money back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL at checkout for 15% off. Once again, at zbiotics.com/LockedOnNFL. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over there at Game Time. And look, there's a wide slate of NFL games happening this weekend, and Game Time is the perfect place for you to go in and get the best prices, best deals on NFL tickets. And on top of that, Game Time, they just launched a brand new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks, they filter out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. If you want to go to one of the bigger games this week on the AFC side of things, Game Time will give you the best price guarantee inside the app, so you can go even deals up to the last minute inside the app. Obviously, Game Time Picks is something we touched on here, but I like the seat view feature inside of the Game Time app because I want to know exactly what the vantage point of the field is going to be like when I'm going to a football game. Or if I'm going to an MLB postseason game, you're going to see the seat view inside the app of Game Time. That's one thing. That's one benefit that Game Time brings to the table. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. As we jump into the deeper action on today's episode of the Locked On NFL AFC Squad, we'll highlight which teams in the AFC might be on upset alert, but also highlighting some key performances from Week 5 around the National Football League. I'm going to throw this first and foremost here to Kevin. Kevin, obviously the Ravens, a team that you cover, they were in a little bit of dire straits going into that fourth quarter against the Cincinnati Bengals. They find a way to claw back in it and win it in overtime. What's the vibe right now for the Ravens? Is they're certainly hitting their mark a little bit after a little bit of a slow start. They were, I'd say, probably at one point the best 1 and 2 team in the NFL at one point. Now they're getting some momentum here. What's it like in Baltimore right now?
Yeah, it's good. Wig wouldn't let me talk about him yesterday on Locked On NFL, so I'm going to talk about him right here on AFC Squad. Look, I mean, a game like that, I'm still kind of coming down from that game emotionally, just with everything that happened. It's back and forth, but people are feeling pretty good in Baltimore here, at least on the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, in the secondary, they have had their fair share of issues, miscommunications, and just poor play in general. Marcus Williams, who they signed to a huge deal a couple off seasons ago from New Orleans, is graded out as one of the worst safeties in the league so far, and that's been a pretty big detriment to them. But Lamar Jackson's playing like an MVP again and ranks in the top 5 in plenty of categories. And I think the conversation around Baltimore, and look, especially with Jaden Daniels coming to town in week 6, obviously no one had that matchup circled on the calendar when the schedule came out. It was kind of like, oh, okay, the Ravens will kind of stomp that match. But now
is this the upset alert of the week?
I'm not going that far personally. I'm sure maybe other people will, but I think
the NFC folks
doesn't. Yeah, I believe it. I believe it.
Could the Ravens cover Cody and I right now if we were out on the field? Because that's my biggest concern.
Hey, you're going for 200 and a touchdown, man.
That's the thing is like Washington can turn this into a shootout.
Yeah.
And if it gets into one of those games, you just never know.
Yeah, I think the thing that encouraged me, though, is, and Lamar's done it before, this is not new, but the fact that they were in negative game script this time and they were able to keep it close, where Cincinnati was scoring on every single possession. Lamar matched them. I mean, that was pure cinema quarterback play between Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow in week 5. But the thing that I like about what the Ravens are doing this year, particularly on offense, is one, they've figured out how to use Derrick Henry against the Chiefs. Chris, I know we had talked about it beforehand. A little bit of weird usage with them running them 5 carries on the first drive and then not really running them again after that. But they've figured out that. And the offense and the pass guys, we know in Baltimore, they just run through the tight ends. So it was kind of Lamar throwing it up and Mark Andrews is down this time. Let me chuck this thing up and see if he can go get it. But now Lamar spreading the ball around. So I expect it to be a shootout, Marcus. I don't think this is going to be a very defensive battle. I think Baltimore has better defensive personnel, but they're not showing that they can use that personnel effectively through 5 weeks so far. But man, this Baltimore team, I'd say overall, the vibes are good heading into a game against the Commanders.
There was a week 5 upset, so to speak, a little bit. The Houston Texans obviously beating the Buffalo Bills. Mike, the New England Patriots making a change at the quarterback. Drake May's going to get the start for them. Now they play C.J. Stroud and the Texans. This game right here also has it as potential upset alert here. Obviously, according to our friends over there at FanDuel Sportsbook, the Patriots are 7-point underdogs in this game at home. So, I mean, what are we feeling here, gentlemen? All of you chiming in. Like, is this the upset game of the week? Mike, we'll start off with you.
I think this is going to be a tough one to get an upset on, if I'm very honest with you. The New England Patriots right now are going to be feeling a little bit of extra juice with Drake May in the lineup. And look, the Patriots really have nowhere to go but up when it comes to their offense. You look at what they did against the Miami Dolphins, the team that really was reeling defensively coming in. They were without their top pass rusher in Jalen Phillips, and that defense looking for a little bit of an identity. Patriots managed only 148 passing yards. They converted only 4 of 13 third downs. That's not going to cut it. It's just not sustainable. And that's why you're seeing Drake May in the lineup against the Texans. But it's a curious time to bring him out. The Patriots offensive line is yielding a league best 48.3% pressure. And that's a lot. I mean, you talk about the team now that is generating the most pressure in the NFL. It's the Houston Texans, 42%. Danielle Hunter leading the league with 29 pressures. That's a lot of pressure to put on a kid like Drake May. Drake May is good with off script. He can definitely make the explosive plays. He can make the throws downfield that Patriots fans have been wanting to see. But at the end of the day, is that offensive line giving him enough time? That worries me. And this defense right now is reeling a little bit as well. The Patriots had some off-field problems this week with Jabril Peppers. Obviously, he will not be in the lineup this week. And you're looking at Kyle Duggar probably still missing some time as well. It's going to be difficult for the New England Patriots to stop that Houston Texans offense. So going to be a lot of era of good feelings in the in Foxborough on Sunday with the red threads and the Patriots with the red throwbacks and Drake May finally getting his start, but they're running into a tough Texans team. I don't see an upset coming.
The Patriots offensive line play like they don't like Jacoby Brissett. They're playing like they got a hit on that man. It's like, oh, y'all don't go ahead. You go that way, I'm gonna go this way. You go ahead and knock him out the game. I ain't never seen nothing like it, man. Yep. They were playing like they don't like dude, man.
I was gonna say, like, maybe Marcus and Jacoby Brissett were best friends there for a minute. He's like, hey man,
that's my guy. You can't be talking bad about my guy Jacoby. But Mike, I wouldn't be surprised if the offensive line does look a lot better. Like listen, Jacoby is a fine backup quarterback, but he cannot move, right?
Right.
You get a quarterback in there that is willing to escape a little bit, that will stand tall in the pocket. Watch how that offensive line looks better. I actually think this is a game that the Patriots can win because Nico Collins is going to be out with a hamstring injury. This offense is just not the same without Nico. Tank Dell does not look like the same player that we saw last year. He's just not the same athlete. This Patriots defense, if they can keep this game around 17, 20 points, you just never know. And with this being Drake May's first game, this is probably a good time to catch a team like the Texans before there's more tape on them.
Yeah,
That's a good point. Don't forget, though, that Stephon Diggs knows this team very well, knows that defense very well. This is a guy that torches them on a regular basis when he played for the Buffalo Bills. So that's still a concern. I understand that definitely, not having Nico in the lineup is going to hurt that Texans offense, but there are other circumstances and other factors to consider. But I do think you're absolutely right when it comes to the masking of the problems on the offensive line. Drake May, much better equipped to do that than Jacoby Brissett, without question.
Chris,
they want to rush with 4 too.
Yeah.
They paid Danielle Hunter a lot of money, and Will Anderson. They drafted him and used a lot of capital to go up and get him. This is just not a good spot because I don't think they're going to blitz. That means they're going to cover, and when they cover sideline to sideline in that DeMeco Ryans defense, that's going to give him more things he has to look at, and that's going to make him wait. And if you wait with Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson with a bad offensive line, that is a recipe for destruction. They should give the ball to Ramondre Stevenson 35 times to make it easy on their quarterback.
Hopefully no fumbles there, by the way.
Cody, can I give you another game that I think is going to be an upset?
Yeah. I was going to ask Chris if the bye week was going to get the Chiefs this week. Obviously
that's the only time that's the chance of them stopping the Chiefs, right? I want your guys' thoughts on the Sunday night football game between the Bengals and the Giants. Everybody's talking about how good this Bengals team is, despite being 1-4. And I think you look at this game against the Giants and you just pencil it in on the road as a win for Cincinnati. I don't see that. I see a defense with the Giants that can get pressure with the front 4, drop 7 in coverage. And then you look at this Giants offense the last 2 weeks, like they've just been dominating the time of possession. The Bengals can't get off the field. I think this is a dangerous, dangerous spot for this Bengals team.
I agree. Anytime you're 1-4, it's a dangerous spot.
Yes.
And because your season is like getting away from you. And they've had some games where it looked like they probably should have won, some shootouts. They're real close to not being – they'll be real close to being just like Baltimore. Let me explain it. Baltimore is a team of smiles and cries. Think about this. The throw Lamar made, he got criticized in Kansas City. Like, you don't the one he missed and then the one he made, well, you're never going – it's not sustainable. You can't win like that, right? And then they have a lead against Dallas. And then that goes away, right? And then the other day, if they could hold the ball on a field goal, ain't nobody talking about Lamar and all of those dudes being all happy. That's 2 or 3 games that could have just flipped the other way. But that just shows you how close things are in the NFL. The Bengals, the flip side, have been the victims of it. The jinx and KC that they have all the time. They always get the best. Every single week, it's like something else. You see them just hold their head down like, we lost again. They got 3 games this year. They could have won each and every one of them on the last play. And they'd be the Ravens, and the Ravens could be the Bengals.
They're not, though.
They lost it.
Crazy thing to me is you look at the Cincinnati team, and Zach Taylor has made some mistakes this year. And I think that's really what's cost them. And you get in a situation where you get gifted a fumble. Sorry, Kevin, but that's really what that was. They got gifted the ball in overtime. And you hand the ball off. You take the ball out of your best player's hands and don't let him even throw the ball when he's been playing lights out the entire game. It was a horrible decision on Zach Taylor's part. And this Bengals team, I agree with you, Marcus. This could be a trap game for them, and they could be overlooking the Giants. But right now, the Bengals defense can't stop anybody, so who knows what's going to happen in that game.
And Daniel Jones has played well. Like he played pretty well in the Cowboy game on Thursday. He was awesome against the Seahawks in Seattle in that game.
Without Malik Neighbors.
Who will be back in this game. If Daniel Jones plays an average game, they're going to put up 27 points. And I think Joe Burrow's been awesome. Like he's probably been the best quarterback in the league through 5 games. He's due to have an average game. And if he has an average game, there's no way the Bengals can win.
And I agree about Zach Taylor, Chris. I was shocked the Bengals decided to run it 3 straight times, and what was the Ravens 38 or something. I mean,
Yep.
Joe Burrow would torch them, but the Bengals were coaching scared the entire game, especially on that sequence at the end of the first half. They didn't want to get the ball back. They wanted to bleed that clock down to halftime. John Harbaugh was the one that called the timeout for some reason to give the ball back to the Bengals, and Zach Taylor was like, "Oh, all right, I'll take this. All right, okay, if you're gonna give it to me, I'll take it." And then they capitalized on it. So the Bengals offense has been awesome. Joe Burrow's been awesome, Jamar Chase, etc. But also that defense is just so bad. I mean,
it adds up too when you're losing games
Yeah.
like that and it's close and it's 1 or 2 plays that define it. Like at what point, like the mental energy and like you have to exhaust to climb yourself out of that hole is crazy. Denver somehow did it last year at 1-5. They were able to get to 5-5. That right there, though, you ask players, that probably drained the most energy out of them, especially and it impacted them later on down the stretch of the season.
Cody,
it's a challenge.
Denver didn't probably expect to get to 5-5 or have a good season last year. They weren't expected to have a good year. Cincinnati was looked at it as a team that could be a contender this year.
Yep. If Joe
the
Burrow's
amount of
healthy.
pressure, and Tony made this point earlier, the amount of pressure that they're going to be on the rest of the season just to have a chance to win and just to have a chance to get into the playoffs is going to be huge. And that could play a factor, especially this week or in any game going forward for Cincinnati.
Speaking of playoffs, one thing we are going to talk about here on the debut episode of Locked On NFL AFC Squad, which team at the bottom of their division, as it stands here after week 5, has the best chance to make the playoffs? We'll break it down. We'll share our thoughts here on today's episode of the show. Today's Locked On NFL AFC Squad show is brought to you by our friends over there at FanDuel. And as we all know, FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. And NFL fans, you can start off this season with a big-time return inside of the FanDuel app. So when you get the hunch that's going on in the middle of a game as you're watching, you can check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play, and you can do so much more on the same exact page where you place your bets. You have a hunch before a game that you feel like one player is going to go off. You can go to the player prop section and you can choose over or under on passing yards, different props like rushing props, receiving props, or you can even go through. And what I like to do personally, I like to go through the morning games. Sometimes I like to go through the afternoon games. I just like to do a parlay where I do the picks straight up on the money line inside of the FanDuel Sportsbook app. And when you do that, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Once again, when you place your first $5 bet, you'll get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed inside of the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Make sure you check it out today. That's FanDuel.com. Once again, FanDuel.com. As we jump on the fourth quarter of today's Locked On NFL AFC Squad, the debut episode on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast, we appreciate you all so much. We're going to break down what we think in terms of the teams right now in the AFC North, AFC East, AFC South, and AFC West. Which teams at the bottom of their division right now have the best chance to make the postseason? I think that this could go a multitude of ways. I look at the AFC standings right now. I mean, on paper, there's some ugly performances from some of these teams, but everyone's within 1 or 2 games right now of that third spot inside the conference in terms of seeding if the playoffs were to begin today. But right now, the teams that are at the bottom of their divisions, you got the Patriots, you got the Bengals, surprisingly, the Jags, and the Raiders. Which team of this group has the best chance of making the playoffs? We'll start with anybody. Anyone that wants to? Okay,
Tony,
take it, Wig. What do you got?
It's us. It's the Jaguars. And I'm being real with this. Outside of the Buffalo game, and that was the one that was on national TV in prime time, which was it was like the bad news Bears, right? 34-7 at halftime. All of the other games have been real close, and they should have won all of them. And they were not playing well. And now they go to London for 2 straight weeks. I know there's a joke in there somewhere, but no, we got a new stadium being built. So shut up. We ain't moving to London. But they're going over there for 2 straight weeks. And they got Caleb Williams, a rookie, and Drake May now. They could be 3-4 in 2 weeks easily if they play the way that they played outside of the Bills game. And remember, they've done this before. They were 2-7 and they end up making the playoffs. And then last year they did it the other way. They were 8-3 and they missed the playoffs. So they have been the biggest ebb and flow team and team of streaks over the last 2 seasons. And I think they have a little bit of a favorable schedule. They already beat the Colts once. Just imagine they can do it again. And I think they'll beat the Titans twice. So now you're talking about a 4 wins in the division, even if they lose their next game against the Texans, who they were beating with a minute to play 2 weeks ago. So I do think that they have the best chance of those teams that you mentioned. And I would say the Bengals, but the problem with the Bengals is they play in too tough a division.
And Tony, I want to mention really quickly on your team. Your schedule's pretty easy over the next couple of weeks, but you look at the end of that schedule and the quarterbacks they play: Will Levis, the corpse of Aaron Rodgers, Gardner Minshew / Aiden O'Connell, Will Levis, and then probably Joe Flacco at that point for the Colts. Like, if they can just survive for the next month, get closer to 500, they could easily go 5-0 to finish out the season, and we're right back to 9 wins like we've been over the last couple of years. And I think 9 wins is probably going to get you the 6 or 7 seed in the AFC.
You mean Russell Wilson's not going to be the Raiders quarterback by the trade deadline at this point?
Please.
Come on.
Somebody, I hope we never see Russell Wilson again this year.
It's setting up for it. I mean,
Hey,
like, if you're Devontae Adams, do you actually want to go to New York now, knowing that organization's just a little bit more dysfunctional? Look, of course, you're going to have Aaron Rodgers, your boy. You're going to have Nathaniel Hackett. That team stinks. That's one of the, like, watching that team operate. I mean, like, for them to do Robert Saleh the way that he did with the whole report about, potential security stuff. I just think the fact that everyone sees that Aaron Rodgers, Nathaniel Hackett are doing terrible and going to keep their jobs. And Robert Saleh, look, he's the head coach, granted that responsibility, but he's the guy who's getting the sword dug into his back in this situation. You want to go, like, Devontae's going to go there. If I'm the Raiders, I'm saying I'm going to send him somewhere else. I think, for example, the Steelers might be able to give them better capital and better overall return if they give them Russ. Not saying it's going to make a difference for the Raiders, but man, at this point, like, that run's going to potentially play itself out here.
The crazy thing about the Jets' potential trade for Devontae Adams to me is you look at that situation, and I agree with you. It's a horrible situation. I don't think that I'd want to be going into that situation.
Who wants to go
Adams, especially look at what he's doing with Garrett Wilson right now. Garrett Wilson looked like he was one of the best young wide receivers in the NFL, and he can't do anything right for the Jets. That is a bad situation. And the other situation that he was looking at trying to go to was the Saints. Do you really want to go to a Saints-led team that doesn't have Derek Carr probably for the next 2 weeks and is probably going to drop the next 2 games because of it? I mean, there's not a good situation for the Raiders. And you start talking about Pittsburgh, that's going to be a big question mark, because I don't know that they have a number 1 wide receiver on their team with the way George Pickens was playing this past week.
Adams for Pickens. There you go.
Yeah, there's a perfect place for him
this Sunday.
There's a perfect place for him, and nobody's mentioned it, and I haven't seen anybody nationally mention it. But if y'all saw what Kirk Cousins did the other night, even with Darnell Mooney's drops, can you imagine him in Atlanta in that dome? In that dome with Kirk doing the swag surf and all those people doing the dirty bird, and them being willing to throw it 40 times, and Kirk will spread it around now. And Atlanta is Atlanta. For a young man like Devontae Adams.
I have too much invested in Kyle Pitts for that to happen, man. I can't have any targets taken away from Kyle Pitts. I've been hurt one too many times. I have to keep the targets for Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, I got it, but still.
I hear it.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know about their cap space, and I don't know about all of that stuff. I just can't imagine him and Bijan and Pitts and Drake London and Kirk Cousins, who it'd be crazy. But
it's so much fun to watch all those guys.
To Washington.
Yeah, Washington.
Oh, geez.
That's the one that I keep thinking about. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, I think it'd be awesome to have Adams in London and Bijan, and then just see Ray McLeod get 13 targets in a game. That sounds amazing. Can't wait for that, Tony.
Social media will explode.
Yeah.
I mean, Mike, how do you feel about this, too? I mean, the Patriots, obviously, that division right now, with everything that's going on with the Miami Dolphins, I still look at Miami, and it's crazy to me. They flipped from last year at this point being the number 1 offense to now being dead last, 32nd. Denver having one of the top defenses that, now after giving up 70 points to them last season. The narratives and the storylines that kind of played out. I think the Patriots will finish, in my opinion. I feel like they'll finish second in the division. I think that the Jets are going to free fall a little bit. I don't have them beating the Bills on Monday Night Football. Are you kidding me? Like, Aaron Rodgers is going to come out because he got rid of Robert Saleh. Well, guess what? You still have Nathaniel Hackett on the sideline. Like, that right there is not going to change anything. I think really it's between, if we're looking at these 4 teams, I think you make a great point about Cincinnati being in the tough division that they're in. I have a hard time believing it's going to be them that can claw their way out. However, they are probably, out of these 4 teams, probably the most dangerous 1-4 team, or bottom of the barrel team in their division right now.
Yeah, without question. Absolutely. And I think right now, with the talent they have from top to bottom, they are going to be the toughest. I do agree with Tony. I think it's the Jags that do have the best chance of being able to make the playoffs because of the road ahead and because of the talent they have on both sides of the ball. Look, I'd love to say that the New England Patriots have a chance to sneak in and really surprise some people, go on a run with Drake May, and make this happen for the Pats and get into a playoff race. But the thing that makes me a little squeamish on that is not so much what Drake is going to do for this offense, which will look better under Drake May. It's the defensive problems that the Patriots have been having. It's the discipline problems. They were whistled for a half dozen penalties, 6 of which were totally avoidable last week. They have got to do a better job of coaching this team, getting them disciplined. One of the things that they did the last couple of years under Bill Belichick and that regime was play undisciplined football. We were promised that was going to be not the case this year. It continues to be. And again, I think the loss of guys like Christian Barmore, Juwan Bentley are so great on that defense. It puts such a strain now on the offense to score points. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I'm thinking the Patriots are going to have a tough road to do it, even though right now the division around them is imploding with the exception of the Buffalo Bills.
Okay. All right. So let's get into, maybe as we get ready to wrap up our first installment here, the Locked On NFL AFC Squad here today, wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. I want everyone to go through and give a prediction for the week. Doesn't have to be for the team that you cover. It can be a widespread NFL prediction on a player you think is going to break out this week or a team performance. Let's start off with you, Chris Clark, since your Chiefs are on a bye week.
Man, to me, I think that this is going to be a situation where you look at what the Jets do in this game or in this week, and I think that they absolutely have to come out and they have to beat the Bills. I just don't see it happening. I cannot see them playing against Josh Allen and Josh Allen having a second game as bad as he had this past week. And quite honestly, that's probably the only way the Jets could beat him. They're going to get a boost from maybe a coaching change if they've really lost the locker room. But at this point, I don't think that's going to matter enough. The Bills are a better team, and it's not even close. And Josh Allen, I think, is probably the number 2 quarterback in the NFL right now, or at least has been in the league for several years now. Joe Burrow probably has a case too, but I think that Bills team is going to beat the Jets, and it's going to be really interesting to see what happens after that, because after firing the coach, are they going to lose even more than just the locker room to the extent that they already have?
Tony, you want to share your prediction of the week?
Because everybody's sitting there all quiet, like, you know, like we're at the child support office or something. So I'll go. No. Trayvon Walker is going to continue to bust out. And this is not me being a homer. This is about me stating facts. Hutchinson's great. He's great. Got the pen on his face. Teams are winning, leading the league in pressures. But there's this thing that Trayvon is a bust. Let me give you some numbers. The Jaguars are 1-4. They played 5 games. Trayvon has 5 sacks. He had 10 sacks last year in his second year. In his last 10 games, he has 9 sacks. That is not a bust. And every coach seems to mention him as being violent. He sets the edge. He's a power pass rusher. He got 3 sacks last week and a forced fumble and caused another sack. And there was nothing on social media about it.
Yeah, it's quiet.
No big man award on ESPN, no breakout mention or nothing like that. Those numbers I just gave you are real. He is a victim of not being the road warrior. He's a victim of not being Hutchinson. If you really pay attention to it, verify those numbers. He has 5 sacks in 5 games. He has 9 sacks in his last 10 games, and nobody's saying anything about it.
And Tony, I'll point out, last week the Colts played the Steelers, and Braden Smith shut out TJ Watt. I believe TJ Watt had 1 pressure in that game. Braden Smith in this game, one of the most technically sound right tackles in the league, had no chance because of the lack of
was
power.
Fighting for his life. Was literally fighting for his life
in that game. Yeah, so I'm glad that you mentioned that one. I've got an AFC prediction that I want to give out here. This is going to be our last week to watch Deshaun Watson as the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. Our national nightmare is going to be over. The Browns play the Eagles this week. They are 8.5-point underdogs in that game. And Philadelphia is a disaster. And they're an 8.5-point favorites in that one. I think if the Browns go 1-5, they're going to have to make a change. Or else they are going to lose the locker room if they haven't already. I think this is the last week we see Watson before I think it's going to be Jameis, but don't rule out Dorian Thompson-Robinson as being the starter moving forward.
Yeah, Marcus, you stole mine. That was going to be like I was predicting like the biggest Browns loss where the noise gets so loud they can't they can't justify it anymore. I know it's kind of like the sunken cost fallacy with them right now. They're just playing him when everybody knows it shouldn't be him. But I'll go Ravens. I'll talk about Baltimore, and I'll say, because everybody's picking the Commanders to upset Baltimore, and that's been the whole thing this week. I'm going to back the Ravens because of the fact that if you are a rookie quarterback, if you are a second-year quarterback, even if you're a third-year quarterback, playing this Ravens defense, whatever iteration it is, Don Martindale, Mike McDonald, or we haven't really seen it with Zach Gore yet. But generally, the style of defense the Ravens play can be a struggle for rookie quarterbacks and younger players who have not seen that defense before. And with the way Lamar Jackson's playing, I'm not saying Jaden Daniels is going to, not do anything in this game. I expect it to be a pretty high-scoring game. But I'm going to say the Ravens win that game by at least 2 possessions, if not 3. That'll be my bold prediction.
Okay.
Man.
Mike, what about you? What do you got?
Yeah, I'll continue the homer trend. I'll stick with the Patriots, and I'll say, you know what? I did say earlier that I do believe that they're going to have difficulty beating the Houston Texans on Sunday, but they will get their first plus 200-yard passing game from a quarterback. And yes, you did hear that correctly. It's been that dismal in New England. They have not had a 200-yard passer all season. They will have that in Drake May, and I think most of those yards will go to Demario Douglas, who's been criminally underused so far for the New England Patriots. That connection between May and Douglas is going to be, I think, a springboard to watch guys like Jalen Polk and Javon Baker get more looks, and maybe you can start to see some budding talent in that wide receiver room for the New England Patriots.
I'm going to
Really
go with
quick.
maybe, yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, just so I can go on top of what Marcus said, that means that Amari Cooper is going to get traded to the Chiefs right after this week or during this week. So I appreciate that, Marcus.
Should not. I'm a big believer that team should not trade within the same conference. Send them to the other conference. Just do that. We'll stick with that. My prediction for the week's not necessarily going to be, I think, one that's shocking. I think that the Buffalo Bills are going to mollywop the New York Jets on Monday Night Football. I think that it's going to be a runaway. And I also think as well, Josh Allen, even on smelling salts, is better than what Aaron Rodgers and Nathaniel Hackett are going to bring to the table for them. I think Buffalo's defense is going to fly around against Rodgers. He doesn't look like the same guy anymore. The fact that they're willing to invest everything into giving him power over what they're doing, like Woody Johnson came out and said, hey, I talked to Aaron Rodgers last night. This is not the reason why I fired Robert Saleh. Who are you fooling? You're not fooling us. Buffalo Bills by at least 3 scores, I think, on Monday Night Football. That's my prediction.
Love it.
Tony, did the Gumby kick in yet? You're muted.
No, I didn't realize I was waving because Marcus' screen froze for about 2 minutes, and I'm sitting there like, that joke ain't blinked his eyes in 2 minutes. What the hell he got going on?
An unofficial staring contest.
Yeah, I was like, Marcus sitting there like this the whole time. I was like, I thought I was looking at an episode of Get Out or something.
I started talking about Amari Cooper, and Marcus just went quiet.
I lost it. I could try to envision Amari with the Chiefs and just broke my brain.
Well, folks, we appreciate you so much for rocking with us here on the debut episode of Locked On AFC Squad. You also want to check out, after you listen to this and watch this, the Locked On NFL NFC Squad. It was a fun conversation in our first week. Obviously, we'll all be back next week to break down the state of the AFC after week 6. Make sure you get a beverage. Join us next time as well if you missed us this first time. We appreciate you so much. We'll be here next week. And on top of that, you can check out each of these respective shows wherever you get your podcasts or available on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.